Today we're going to have a lesson about sentences. Every complete sentence has a subject and verb. So when you're reading or when you're writing, writers always have to confirm the use of complete sentences in text by making sure every sentence contains a subject and verb. The subject is the part of the sentence that is doing or being. And then the verb is the action of the sentence. It is the action demonstrated by the subject. I will say that there are many helping verbs that are used sometimes before the action. Some helping verbs can be used as an action verb by themselves, and common helping verbs are listed to the right. Am, are, be, been, did, do, does, can, could, had, has, have, is, may, might, must, should, will, would, was, were. And so, 7th grade, that's just a list of the common helping verbs. Now, I have a couple example sentences here. An alarm went off in Mrs. Leisgang's room. Until today, Mr. Sievert always ran to Mr. Ramsey's room. Mrs. Jansen is cold. Mr. Sievert and Mr. Ramsey were walking around the school building at lunchtime. So what we're going to do here, or what I'm going to model for you, is identifying the subject and verb. And many times when I look at a sentence, if I'm struggling to find the subject, then I like to find the verb first, the action of the sentence. It is possible that the verb is also just simply a helping verb. So in this first sentence, an alarm went off in Mrs. Leisgang's room. I have to look at that sentence and determine, what is the subject, what is the action? Well, the action is something went off. And so as a reader, I know something went off. That's the action. So then whatever went off is the subject. So went is my action, and whatever went off is the subject. Whatever went off is the subject. Well, the alarm went off. The alarm went off. The alarm is the subject of the sentence. Went is the verb. Now this next sentence, until today, Mr. Sievert always ran to Mr. Ramsey's house. So when I read this sentence, I have to think about, what is the subject? What is the verb? And I see that Mr. Sievert is in the sentence and Mr. Ramsey, so I'm thoroughly confused about the subject right now. So I'm going to think about the verb first. And the action of this sentence is ran. So my subject is the individual that happens to be running, the individual that ran. Well, Mr. Sievert ran, so Mr. Sievert is the subject. The next sentence, Mrs. Jansen is cold. Well, if I look at this one's tricky because I don't necessarily see a verb that stands out, but I do see the word is a helping verb, and I also see the word is happens to be used in this sentence. So is my verb, and Mrs. Jansen is my subject. This last sentence, Mr. Sievert and Mr. Ramsey were walking around the school building at lunchtime. Mr. Sievert and Mr. Ramsey were walking around the school building at lunchtime. Walking is the verb, and it has the helping verb were, so it's actually a verb phrase. Were walking is the verb, so I have to think, were walking is the verb. I have to think, who happens to be walking? Well, in this instance, it's a plural subject because there's two individuals walking, Mr. Sievert and Mr. Ramsey. Mr. Sievert and Mr. Ramsey were walking. So what I just did was confirm the use of complete sentences in a text by making sure every sentence contains a subject and verb. So now what you're going to do is it will be your job now to go to the website noreading.com, and your job will be to complete an assignment that involves identifying subject and verb in the sentence. The subject is the part of the sentence that is doing or being. The subject is the part of the sentence that is doing or being. The subject does the action, and then the verb is the action of the sentence. It is the action demonstrated by the subject. So now you're going to practice confirming the use of complete sentences in text by making sure every sentence contains a subject and verb by completing the assignment on